Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name is Amanda and I'm so glad that you could be with me today. Today's episode is a follow-up to my earlier one. In my previous episode, I talked about the three main movements in Judaism within the United States and a little bit about each one and how they might look differently. So today's video is going to be an expansion on that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what movement I chose and why and all the nitty-gritty. Okay, so let's dish. Okay, so as you may recall from my previous videos, I was a Christian growing up. I was in the Christian denomination of the United Church of Christ, which is one of the Protestant denominations, for 40 years about. And I was very involved in that. And then I had struggles throughout my life. Things that just didn't sit right with me, things that I would ask questions about and I wouldn't get answers, or the answers that I received were very surface level and didn't answer my question. It didn't get to the root of what was going on. I struggled greatly. From the earliest time I remember questioning things was when I was in third grade. And it didn't end. There were times where I stepped away from the church and I tried to go to some other churches and just explore different things for myself because something didn't feel right. I taught confirmation, and as part of teaching confirmation with the kids, the Sunday school kids, I would take people who were entering the confirmation age, so 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade sometimes, and we would go to other churches and we would go experience other faiths and other denominations and other practices to kind of get a feel for it. I wanted to open their eyes, but selfishly I also did it because I was looking, and it gave me a cover and it was less judgment if I was taking other people and going with that premise. So I experienced multiple different denominations, and there was something, probably from about 8th grade there was something drawing me to the Judaism faith. I didn't know what it was. I remember in 8th grade, I just thought the colors of silver and blue for Hanukkah were so beautiful. And I thought there was such beauty in that religion, that faith practice. And that's all I knew about them, was the silver and blue colors for Hanukkah. And that's what I knew. As I learned more throughout, there was something that I looked forward to, the visits to the Jewish synagogues. I just did in my confirmation visits. When my amazing boyfriend entered my life about 2 years ago, he has a Jewish background. And so we would have conversations and dialogue, and the questions that I would pose to him, he would be able to either answer or help me understand what I was actually looking for. And it just kind of brought it full circle. He doesn't have all the answers, but he also didn't make me feel like there was something wrong with me for having a question. And so his only push or encouragement, if you want to call it that, in this whole process has been when he first encouraged me to go to synagogue by myself. Because I always enjoyed the experience when I brought the students with me. He said, just go by yourself. See if you have that same feeling of peace and home and that this is just right if you're by yourself. So I did. I was nervous and I reached out to the synagogue first and made sure that it was all okay and everything. Especially in today's climate and society, you would certainly want to reach out to any synagogue you were going to before just showing up, just to give them a heads up that you were coming in. Somebody would be ready and waiting for you to kind of welcome you and walk you through. So I messaged them, had a lovely little conversation with them over Facebook is where I messaged them. And then I went to service, and I was struck by the feeling of genuine caring by the people. I know it's a weird thing to be struck by, but I also found them to be just very organic people. And I'm not talking like, oh, let's all chew on some granola. No, not that kind of organic. Just real, true. They didn't try to pretend to have all the answers. They didn't try to have it all together. They didn't try to be perfect. They were just real, and they were present. And they took the time, they took the initiative to actually make me as a newcomer feel wanted, respected, and welcomed. Those are 3 things that I didn't necessarily experience in my home church even. And that's sad. So after talking about different things and exploring different things, I did not jump on the conversion process right away. I attended the synagogue more regularly. At the very beginning, I think the first time I went to synagogue was in late January, early February, and I attended very regularly. I would occasionally still go to the church that I was a part of, but over time that got more and more awkward feeling for me. I felt more and more disconnect, and I felt uncomfortable just with the words that they were using. I didn't care for it. So I decided to explore conversion again after lots of conversations with my amazing boyfriend. And at the time, he was practicing via, it's called modern orthodoxy. So it's basically Orthodox, but they're a little bit more progressive as far as accepting some rules and variations. So they aren't quite as strict or hold you quite as liable for not driving on Shabbat or not using electricity on Shabbat or things like that. There were slight things that they didn't judge each other as harshly for. Now, so he kind of told me about the 3 different movements, and I was just kind of following his lead. I had the synagogue that I was attending was a conservative synagogue, but also they had a lot of things that were very much like in the Reform movement. So I happened to reach out to a conservative rabbi, and I met with him, and my amazing boyfriend came with me so we could have that conversation because I was terrified. Quite honestly, I was scared that this rabbi was going to say nope, and that's all I heard about when I was doing research about the different movements and conversion and all these different things, that the rabbi was going to say no and basically turn you away for you to prove that no, this is what you really want. I don't like rejection. I struggle with that, and I struggle with feeling judged sometimes. So I was terrified. So I was very grateful that my amazing boyfriend came with me. So we met with the rabbi. I enrolled in the Judaism 101 class. Judaism 101 is the class that they use to help people who are converting learn more about the Judaism practices and the culture and the religion and the faith practices and everything. So I enrolled in that, and I was meeting with the rabbi occasionally through Zoom meetings, and I also was attending this class. The class was not taught by the rabbi, and I was progressing through it, and I was doing all great things, and it was probably a year-ish that we had met, and we transitioned into meeting one-on-one with the rabbi. So having more in-depth conversations, and when he deemed that you were ready, then he would go on to the next step. So after you do the Judaism 101 class, the plan was you meet with the rabbi until he deems you ready, and then you go before a Beis Din and you go into the mikveh, and then you're finished with your conversion. And the class kind of stalled. It was done. We were going to do some large group practices and that didn't work. So I just kind of felt stalled in my process, and I didn't like that. Not that I needed to jump in right away, because there's a lot to Judaism. As I said in my last presentation, there's a lot, and it's more than just a religion, and I really wanted to take the time to understand, but I also wanted to know a path. So tell me where we are on the path. Tell me what I need to do to get to where we want to go, and that's what I'll do. And it felt like the path kept changing and I wasn't aware of it. And so I decided to take ownership, and I said, okay, so I am going to make a list of these are the things that I feel I need to do, experience, understand more in order to fully say, yes, I'm ready for this. And one of those things was to experience either a service or an event with the other two movements, the Reform movement as well as the Orthodox movement. So I happened to go to an Orthodox celebration for Purim, and it was very, very lovely, very jovial. It was very interesting to see the different dynamics between people who were Orthodox practicing and people who were conservative or Reform practicing. Just very interesting, and I enjoyed people watching. I loved their sense of community, but it felt off-putting to me because I wasn't part of their community. They didn't know me. I was not from the area, and it was very much about rules that they didn't want necessarily questioned. And the kicker for me was after the dinner, there was dancing. And I knew in Orthodox movement, the men and women don't dance in front of each other. So as we were sitting at the tables, eating, having a great time, talking, laughing, all these other things, a bunch of men started dancing. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't think anything of it. And then this curtain-like barrier came through and was carried by these men. And as they're coming, they're jovially saying, women folk, and I was just astonished. To me, it felt like they were saying, know your place, women. And it was kind of a kick in the gut, because the rule isn't that men and women can't dance in front of each other. No, the rule is women can't dance in front of men. It's the women's problem. Men can dance in front of each other and women and be absolutely fine. But women, oh, if they start dancing, the men just can't control themselves. They can't do it. So no, women, you have to confide yourself to behind this curtain. And that just didn't fly with me. So at that point, I knew that Orthodox wasn't going to be my jam. So a couple months later, I happened to find a synagogue in Milwaukee. Again, I'm from Wisconsin, so there's not that many synagogues. So I went to a synagogue in Milwaukee, and I walked in, and the people were so welcoming and so warmly receiving of me. I went to Friday night service to welcome Shabbat. I went to Torah study in the morning on Saturday, and then I went to Torah service on Saturday. And at each one of those, I was struck by the beauty of the space. I was struck by, oh my goodness, these people, they don't even know me, but they care about me. And I loved that. I loved that when I was having Torah discussion, they looked at me like I had something to offer and I wasn't automatically discredited. I loved that. Loved that experience. It was amazing. I left service and I called my amazing boyfriend and I'm like, I think it might be where I need to be. This might be my home. So I did that. I still have my one closer synagogue that I attend, and that's, again, a conservative / Reform synagogue. But after I had those experiences and my conversion process was stalled, kind of, in my interpretation, I made the decision that I needed to reach out to this Reformed rabbi and see if I could essentially switch my conversion path to be converting under him. Because as a conversion, you need to have a sponsoring rabbi. So I went through with the process and I met with the rabbi, and what I loved about meeting with this Reformed rabbi is he validated me. He validated my story, my journey. Like, he kept saying, you know what's right for you. And if this is what's right and this is what you're feeling, which is great, then yes, absolutely, I will be your sponsoring rabbi. And I loved that. I felt finally like, okay, it didn't have to be this unknown of I don't know what's happening and will they accept me, will they reject me. When he decided to become my sponsoring rabbi, he gave me a list of, okay, these are all the things that when someone is in the process of conversion, this is what I want them to learn about, study. These are all the different things. And we went through it. It probably was a list of 20, 25 things. And I had all but one completed. So I'm still currently in the conversion process, but I am now converting under the Reformed movement. And the one thing I have left is I am doing a reflection paper. There's a bunch of different questions and I need to basically just answer what my views are on particular things. There's like what historical event speaks to you the most? What prayer do you find the most enjoyment in reciting? How do you view Shabbat as part of your life? And things like that. So I'm still working through that paper. And then once the paper is finished, I'll meet with the Beit Din, and then I'll go into the mikveh and my conversion will be finished so that I met it halakhically. So yeah, that's been my journey. I started in the conservative movement. I felt off-put a little bit. They do a lot of Hebrew and I don't know Hebrew. It felt a little less accessible to me. It felt like there was a secret code that I didn't know. And I had that support when I was in the Judaism 101 class, but it felt like that support left when that class was finished. And then I was just kind of treading water, but not knowing which direction I was supposed to be going towards. Switched to the Reform movement, and I have a direction. I have a feeling of acceptance with the community. I still meet with the rabbi occasionally on my process, and I am loving worship. I am loving my experiences, and I'm slowly learning more. I'm slowly learning Hebrew, and I'm not the best at it by any means, but I am enjoying it. I love attending services, and I love making Judaism a part of my life, even though I'm not officially Jewish yet. That's been all the different things that I have experienced thus far. You have to do what's right for you as far as movements. I really thought when I started in conservative that would be it for me. I liked the reasoning and the rationale. I liked what they stood for as far as their beliefs. I also liked that my amazing boyfriend was more modern Orthodox, which was very similar to conservative, and that was nice for my brain. It just kind of linked together. But it didn't, I was trying to fit into a mold that I just wasn't at. I can still attend a conservative synagogue and be absolutely fine. I don't know enough. And coming from my Christian background, the Reform movement, it feels like a better fit for me right now. Now, 5-10 years down the road, that may change. I may change to conservative. I don't think I'd switch to Orthodox, just because in the Orthodox movement, to be part of the Orthodox community, you need to live in an Orthodox community to really get the full picture. And that's just not feasible for where I am in Wisconsin. There's very few Orthodox communities, and even then it's tough. It's tough to get into those Orthodox communities because there's not a whole bunch of space. So that's me, and that's where I am on this journey. So again, it's still a journey in process, but that's why I am currently in the process of converting under the Reform movement. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Again, I think my last short had where you could post questions or concerns or comments or whatever. So feel free to do that there. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.